wasn't overly thrilled when I looked at this place, because in 1973 I envisioned that it would be lodges, ponds, and little trout jumping out all over the place, and we would have deer that would come by and we'd cut the deer. And I looked at this place and I thought, this is an Air Force base. There's no planes, but I was disappointed at first, but it hit me in that moment, just at that moment, this is the place. Warren Drew was right. This was the place. And I said back then, okay, if this is the place, this old thing that I called an old Chevy, I said, we're going to make this a shining Chevy, a shiny Chevy. You all with me on that? They went, okay. No, we're going to shine this place out to make it a shining Chevy. Well, last night it came to me, somebody said, David, how about this shining Chevy? I said, it isn't one. I said, this is a white Dodge Ram truck. A Montana white Ram Dodge truck. So I am laying down the law from now on, no more talk of Chevys. You get it? He was traveling around the ocean by himself in this little boat. Now, during that time, well, Robin was not a Christian. His parents were not a Christian. They were far from that. But my mom was committed to praying for Robin every day. She was his godmother. She insisted on being his godmother. My mom was a very spiritual lady. She still is. And she prayed for him every single day of his life from the time he was born. And out in the seas, I don't know if it was the Indian Ocean or off of Marquesas Islands, he hit 40-foot seas for nearly 40 days. The mast broke. He was thrown overboard in the night. He was bailing water. The ship actually, at one point, the boat did a corkscrew. If any of you are sailors and know what that is, when everything goes upside down and backwards and forwards. And he came up to a broken mast, and he actually prayed for the first time in his life. And these 40-foot seas, 4 hours later, when he woke up, completely exhausted, were completely flat. Along with a nice 10-knot wind that took him the rest of the way to South Africa, Cape Town. Well, Robin decided during that last leg across the Atlantic that he was going to find out who calmed the storm. He gets back from this trip in 1970, and he and I get together right away because we were always close as little boys. We'd sail together in his little dinghy sometimes, and he came to the Lord. He and his wife. My wife and I had the privilege of helping that process go through, and his life changed, and he turned on fire. At the same time this was happening, he had this great desire to get out of Dodge. He did not want to live around people. He was a Mother Earth News sort of guy, and he was just going somewhere, and it had to be in the mountains someplace. He stopped by one night, and coincidentally, a friend of mine who he didn't know stopped by, and he wanted to show me some pictures that he had of the trip. And I had him come in. We introduced him to Robin and Patty, and Patty, his wife now, and my friend had these pictures, and he'd just come back on a vacation, and he started opening up the album, and I said, where is this place? He says, well, have you ever heard of the Flathead Valley? I said, no. He said, well, it's up in Montana, and well, this got Robin and Patty's interest, and they wanted to look at the pictures, so I got lost, and in the other room practically, where they were just going over these pictures, and a short while later, Robin and Patty were on their way to Montana. I actually accompanied and came along with them on that very first trip. So there were 2 times that we vacationed up here, my wife Kathy and I, and we liked the place. We thought it was a little raw, but it was nice, and it was pretty, and all of this stuff, and Robin and Patty were doing good. In November, Monday after November in 1972, not sure if it was the 24th or what it was. Robin and Patty had come down to visit the whole family for Thanksgiving, and now they were stopping by our house, and they were going to see us one last time, and before they came back here. So we're sitting down, and Patty said, "We have something very important to share with you." And I said, "You do? These are new Christians." And I said, "Great, well, what is it?" "God spoke to us to tell you something." And I looked at Kathy, and I said, "These sweet young Christians got something to tell us." And so Patty began to say, David, God spoke to us and said that you are to come to Montana right away." I looked at Kathy like, and I said, "Okay," and she went on, "Yeah, no, right away. God said you're supposed to come. Just leave everything here. It'll work, and come with us. Join us in Montana." I said, okay. So she said, no, we're going to pray about it. She grabbed my hand. Robin grabbed Kathy's hand. The four of us around our little table. Kids are running around in the living room, and she prays this prayer, beautiful prayer. And she says, "God, you got to let them know they're not getting this, and they need to come to Montana right away. And so teach them, tell them, somehow reveal it to them right away." So I said, "Okay, that's all nice prayer, amen." And we went outside on the front lawn, hugged goodbye, and they get in their 1951 blue and white post office van that's about ready to fall apart, and they start chugging down the street towards Montana. I'm just baffled and laughing on the front lawn. And I hear the phone ring. So I run back in the house, and the man on the other line was a man named Jim Spillman. Now, Jim scared me to pieces. He was one of the pastors of our church, and he was a prophetic kind of guy. And you're the kind of guy who knows the sins that you just did. And I'm thinking, why is he calling me? I hardly know the man. He's one of the pastors of our church, but our church has got 10,000 people in it, he just came on board. He was this great evangelist. He was, he always had words for people, and I avoided the guy all the time. And so I said, "Hi, Jim. Pastor Jim." And he said, "David, I know it's your day off, and Monday." And he said, "But I have to talk to you right away." And so I said, "Right away?" He says, "Yeah, how soon can you get here?" I said, 10 minutes. He said, "Be here in 9. I said, "Okay." So I get in my car. In my car, driving through Anaheim, I am repenting the whole way. I told God I was sorry for everything I even didn't do. But I was nervous. I was really nervous. So I get to his office. I walk in his door. He says, "Have a seat." I said, do I need to? And he said, "Yes, have a seat." He said, "I am so sorry to bother you on your day off, but this is important." And I said, "Okay." And I'm thinking, just give me my pink slip. I'll be on my way. And he said, "David, you've done a wonderful job. You complimented me and all this stuff." I said, "Okay." And he says, "I have to tell you something. I was actually supposed to call you this morning when I woke up because God told me to. But," he says, "I got all involved in the office duties and the functions and all that stuff, and so I just didn't do it. And then all of a sudden, just 2 minutes before I called you," I'm out on the lawn when he calls you. 2 minutes before he says to me, "I told you to call David and tell him about this dream." So he said, "Here it is." Now, I have to tell you something, he went on. I have never dreamed in living color in my life. This is a 44-year-old man, never dreamed in color. I only started to dream in color just a few years ago. But he had never, ever before. And he says, so it was so astonishing to me, and it was so vivid. I cannot tell you how vivid this dream was. And you were a major figure in the middle of this dream. And when God gave me this dream, and I woke up, he said, "I will never forget the dream. It was that vivid." And he said, he told me to call you, and I hear him, so I'm calling you. He said, I have no clue what this dream means. I can't imagine what it would be here in the concrete village of greater Los Angeles, And he says, so here it is. You were standing in the middle of a small valley, and you were surrounded by evergreen trees. I said, what's an evergreen tree? So he said there's this big body of water, and then there's this, and there in the distance there were mountains that reminded me of, he had been to Switzerland several times. He said, remind me of Switzerland. It was a beautiful place. And he said, it was very detailed. I saw every little detail, the birds that were flying in the air. But he said, most importantly, he said, you were in the middle of this encampment. That's the word he said. I'll never forget the word encampment. And he said, you were standing in the middle of this encampment, and there were people, mainly young people, coming from nations all over the world to this place. And I said, nations all over the world that were coming to the place? He said, yes. And there were then, the remarkable thing is, most of those same people then got up and went to new nations all over the place. And he said, high over the sky, written in the sky. And it stood still. It was very clear. It wasn't moving. While all this commotion was going on above, the word youth. Go figure. And I began to cry. And I thought of Patty's prayer, the young Christians. 5 weeks later, on Christmas night, we left Anaheim, California with $500, 3 children, the youngest was 6 weeks old, a 21-year-old Buick, and a trailer. And we didn't know what we were going to do when we got here. There was no idea. We only knew one couple, Robin and Patty. We couldn't even get a hold of them because they lived out in their hippie woods with their log cabin. They don't have a phone. They never go to the post office. I was saying, so I'm going on too long here. Mariska said, is he long-winded? And I said, yes. But I'll try to make it short here. It was 12 long years before one man played a major role in my life, until I met another man who played a major role in my life, who was as visionary and as excited about a vision, about a dream that had taken place many years before that man's Warren Drew. Warren, are you here today? And Jennifer. Yeah. I love those guys, and they did what Jim Spillman did. They just walked into my life all of a sudden and blasted me with something I had almost forgot about. Honestly, there had been so many trials and tribulations and 12 years of desert time that it almost got away from me. I almost lost faith for it ever happening. And by the way, speaking of faith, people say, how did you have the faith to do what you did? And the answer is easy. It was in my face. It didn't require any faith. Patty prays a prayer, Pastor Jim tells me the story, and you go. And when Warren and Jennifer came by one Sunday afternoon, it was like deja vu. Didn't have to pray about it. It was the fulfillment of a plan that God had a long time ago. A plan that all of you here, every one of you here, were a part of. Think about it. When all this is going on, God's doing all of these individual things in all these lives, and they're all a miracle. Every one of you are a miracle. Right? Every one of you are a miracle. YWAM, if people don't believe in miracles, then they don't want to talk to YWAMers. Because we live, think about it, guidance. Divine guidance is a miracle in itself. How many people in town just talk to God and hear him talk back? Kind of a miracle, wouldn't you say? It's out of the normal, and that's what we all are. We're out of the normal, but we hear God. And it's a miracle.